Hope you guys are doing great and having amazing time. Let me just move all of the windows in the right places. So, as you probably already know, right, the topic for today is how to install Zabbix in 5 minutes. And we're going to be talking about Zabbix 8.0, which important to mention is going to be LTS version. And yes, as per today, the latest version available, the latest stable version available is 7.4. 8.0 is still in Alpha 2 version right now, so it's not stable, and I definitely do not recommend to spin up your production environment on 8.0 in the current state as it is. But time flies, and very soon the stable version is going to be released as well. And then we're going to have our new LTS version for the next 5 years with new functionality and all of the goodies. So that's exactly the reason why it's like a perfect time to start with testing and seeing what's actually inside the Zabbix 8.0. That's why we have a topic about the installation for us to understand like what are the best practices, how to install Zabbix, what do we need to configure, and what do we need to keep in mind just to make sure that everything actually runs smooth, functions, no errors, and everything is available. As much as we talk about a webinar, then everything is as usual. All of your microphones, of course, are muted. You can ask your questions in the Q&A channel, please, not in the chat. You can use a chat for discussion, networking, or whatever else. And after the webinar, I'm going to go through the questions. We'll try to answer them as much as I can. And this webinar, like install in 5 minutes, has been up and available for all sort of different Zabbix versions for multiple years already. And I personally always found it funny that we have. Um, you hear echo? Someone else can please confirm if audio is good. I see a message in the chat about some echo. Anyone? All good? Sounds good. Okay. Um, cool. So let's continue. So this webinar is like the only one which is funny enough because we have a topic how to install Zabbix in 5 minutes, but the duration of the webinar, this one specifically is like 2 hours. You can install Zabbix in 5 minutes. You can install it even in like 2 or 3 minutes if you already know what you need to do. It's probably not going to take us the whole 2 hours, but we're definitely talk about all sort of the details that we need to keep in mind about installation. I'll try to share as much information as I can from my experience and everything else, which also gets us to the point of like I always do like a brief introduction of who I actually am to sit here and teach how to install Zabbix and how to do that correctly and not make any mistakes. Um, some of you maybe probably already have seen me about talking about a Zabbix. So I have a YouTube channel basically dedicated to all sort of the Zabbix tutorials and how-tos and whatever, which started like 7 years ago. So there's at this moment more than like 150 videos about a Zabbix and so on. And happens to be that I myself also worked for the Zabbix company here in Riga, Latvia headquarters for like 9 years. I was doing technical stuff, also management stuff, and all sort of exciting things done in the past. Traveled a lot, seen a lot of Zabbix installations. Did the turnkeys myself on many Zabbix installations, different niches, different business requirements, and so on. So I guess you can say that I've seen some monitoring, and from that also comes the experience that I will gladly try to share you. And probably the main topic is like installation options because there's so many different ways how you can install Zabbix, right? And you need to decide like what is the best for you. And as time goes, there might be some new ways also available. If we go through them one by one, there is, of course, Zabbix packages, which is, and I would not say that it's like easiest. It's easy, but it's not the easiest, and it's fast, but it's not the fastest way how to spin up the Zabbix. But it's definitely like one of the most common ones that goes as the usual stuff in any Linux distribution, so that you just add a repository and install all of the required packages like the Zabbix frontend, Zabbix server, databases, configure everything, and then you have your Zabbix and you can upgrade it and so on and so on. This is also the part that we're gonna do today in a demo. So we're also gonna install Zabbix from the scratch, from the packages, doing all the configuration and making sure that it works. Another option that all of you have is Zabbix Cloud, and Zabbix Cloud is something completely different from all of the other installation methods that you can find here. So Zabbix itself, it is open source monitoring solution, right? So the main core principle is that Zabbix is free, meaning that you can go to zabbix.com/download page and click the big green button get Zabbix and choose from all of these options the one that fits you best, and you can install it for free. You don't need to pay for any licensing or premium editions or premium functionality. Like everything that Zabbix has is absolutely free. And then there is Zabbix Cloud, which basically is a SaaS version of the Zabbix. So you are not required to do installation. You are not required to do any configuration. You don't need to juggle with the configuration files, configuration parameters, um, tuning, database, backups, everything. Basically, Zabbix takes care of everything that's required in a backend, and you just get the front end, and you can use the Zabbix and start monitoring. So that sits in a cloud, and there is a 5-day free trial available. After that, there are multiple tiers that we can actually check. Let me find my browser here. Give me a second. Here, Zabbix Cloud. There we go. Let me make this a little bit smaller. Yeah, so for the Zabbix Cloud, there are multiple tiers which are basically dependent on what is going to be your size of the monitoring, right? If you have just all of this is measured in NVPS, which stands for the new values per second, which is kind of like how many metrics values you are collecting per second with your Zabbix, which comes as a calculation from the number of hosts, metrics, and update interval that you have on each of those. So the cheapest one is like 50 NVPS, which costs you $50, and the biggest one is like 10,000 NVPS, which is a pretty big Zabbix installation, and that is going to cost you $5,000 every month. So you choose like the best for you, but with a SaaS, of course, you need to understand that with that comes like all of the liabilities that usually come with the SaaS. You don't have a full access to the backend. If something breaks, Zabbix needs to take care about that, but you are not the one who can SSH and check some logs and fix something, whatever. So all of the technical depth and technical maintenance is on the Zabbix side, and you theoretically just enjoy the front end. Then there is option for the third party cloud vendors, which we have in one of the next slides, which is like if we go in a marketplace. Okay, I'm going to show that in the next slides. But basically, for every cloud provider like AWS, GCP, Azure, whatever, there is also a marketplace where you can just spin up Zabbix from the marketplace image. It's going to be the same Zabbix as you can download from the packages completely for free. It's going to be spin up on your virtual machine running in the cloud, but you will need to pay for that. Other than that, it's going to be just a regular Zabbix installation. Zabbix appliance, historically, this has been mainly used for for different, let's say, trying out Zabbix, how it works, and doing some demo sessions and whatever. So it's kind of like ISO image that you can very fast run on your virtual machine. But to be honest, like I'm going to show you today in a demo, so you can very easily spin up Zabbix from the packages and even faster from the containers. I actually missed this, so check that next. So yeah, I personally don't really see a huge benefit of using Zabbix appliance, no matter what's your purpose, why you need Zabbix. Containers, that would be the Docker. This is a very fast way how to get Zabbix up and running. It's gonna take you like, if you have Docker, then you need to download image so you can get Zabbix up and running in like 30 seconds or something like that. Especially if you use a Docker Compose, which Zabbix also provides. Out of the box, compose files are there, and you can spin up like the server, database, front end, proxies, agent, everything in just 30 seconds or something like that. Zabbix sources. Sources are historically here. I guess that's like um, the common practice for the open source product, right? If it is open source, then why not publish the sources? In theory, like you can compile Zabbix from the sources. It is way more complicated than installing it from the packages or running from the containers or third-party cloud vendors or so on. So the people might ask like, okay, then what's the benefit of running Zabbix from the sources? And in the past, the main benefit or like again, liability was like in the past, Zabbix supported multiple databases as backend database. There was MySQL, MariaDB, Postgres, also IBM DB2 and Oracle. And for Oracle, as example, there were no official packages available and no cloud images and so on. So if you wanted to run Zabbix with the Oracle database as a backend system, you had to compile it from the sources. Right now, Zabbix does not support Oracle, and that Zabbix does not support IBM DB2. So basically, for all of the supported databases, there are also official packages available, which kind of remove this big part of necessity while why people use the Zabbix sources. What still remains potentially a thing why you would want to use sources in some very secure environments like banking or stuff like that. Sometimes companies have a policies when they don't allow to install pre-configured, pre-compiled piece of software, which the Zabbix packages example is. So they're obligated to compile everything from the sources. And also, when you are compiling from the sources, you can provide a specific list of the tags of the functionality that you want to include in a Zabbix. As example, if you install from the packages, like all of the functionality that Zabbix has, like Java monitoring, SNMP monitoring, VMware monitoring, everything is compiled in that image. So as long as you create a host and item, you can start doing that monitoring. But if you're compiling from the sources, you can specifically mention what exactly you want to have support for in this compilation of the Zabbix. And probably the last thing is like ability to patch your Zabbix installation. Maybe you have, as an open source, you have access to the source code and you can maintain it yourself. You can adjust it. You can make some patches. That would require you to compile from the sources. And the second thing is like if you downloaded, let's say 8.0 came out, it's the first day, version is 8.0, and you installed it from the packages, and then some bug, critical bug was found, and it was fixed in the same day by the Zabbix. In the packages, it's going to be included in the next version of the package, which is going to be 8.0.1. And based on the software development lifecycle, that is going to take like maybe a week, maybe two, depending on the severity of the bug and so on. But usually, like in the bugs, developers will also attach the patch of the source code that fixes that issue. And the patch you can apply only to the Zabbix sources. So if you have a packages and a patch file, there's nothing you can do with that. If you have sources, you apply the patch, recompile from the sources, and you have already fixed fixed version of the Zabbix. Zabbix agents, well, that's the core piece of software that's required to monitor the most common things, such as like Windows servers and Linux servers. There are multiple options how you can install them. There's Zabbix Agent 1 and Zabbix Agent 2. The first one is written in a C language, the second one is in a Go. And the second one also gives an option to create a custom modules and overall extend your monitoring experience. So you kind of choose just the one which is best for you. And here, like this, let me just show you so it's easier to perceive. Like all of this that we're talking about is basically from this Get Zabbix button, where all of these options and this screen is from the Zabbix packages. So here we're able to choose whatever we want to install on our server, and based on our options, we will also have an example commands here. As you can see, the commands are not that many, and if we choose like 7.0, Debian, 11, Java Gateway, um, hmm, there we go. Yeah, so like this, then these commands change accordingly. So basically, what you need to do is figure out what is the version that you want to install. And since we're talking about version 8.0 LTS today, then you need to choose like this pre-release. So it's not officially released yet as a stable version, but the alpha is there, the packages are there, so you can install it and test it out on your system. Operating system distribution, as you can see, like many of them are supported by the Zabbix, but like in a nutshell, in a core, like Rocky, RHEL, Oracle Linux, CentOS, Amazon Linux, and AlmaLinux are kind of same RHEL-based distributions. I personally mostly use AlmaLinux. That's just my personal preference, I would say. Before all of the before a couple of years, like whenever the CentOS was the most popular distribution, definitely across Linux systems, then I always used CentOS. Then there was a big shift with the Red Hat and the CentOS policy, so that essentially it became like not a best option for production systems, just because how it is developed. Essentially, it is used like a testing platform for the Red Hat Enterprise Linux, which requires also the licensing, so it's not good. And since then, I started to use Alma Linux. I know many people like Rocky Linux, like that's mostly a personal preference. We also choose a version 10, 9, 8, whatever we have. If we're starting from the scratch, I would always recommend to have like latest and newest that we possibly can get, especially if we talk about installing LTS version about of Zabbix, then think that we're it's going to be supported like for the next 5 years. And if we don't want to touch and have a lot of changes in our servers for 5 years, then just make sure that all of the operating system versions are as new as possible. Then we need to choose like what do we actually want to install, whether it's going to be the server and the front end, an agent, or a server front and agent 2, or proxy, or just an agent, or Java Gateway, and so on. And based on these decisions, also these commands here will change. And mostly I would say that these commands will change, because no matter what you choose here in Zabbix components, repository is going to be exactly the same for all of them. It's just a matter of which packages we are going to be installing. Database, there are essentially two options, three, if being very specific, like MySQL. You can also run a MariaDB. If you want a MariaDB, you need to choose MySQL. You can run a PostgreSQL, and on a PostgreSQL, you can also run a timescale DB. And in today's demo, we're going to do the PostgreSQL. Which one is best? A very common question from users, like which do you suggest? And I think it's like a very tough question to answer. It very much, I always said like choose the one which you are most familiar with, because if you have all of your experience with MySQL, and I'm gonna say that, well, Postgres is actually better, and you'll think like, okay, he said the Postgres is better, so let me start with the Postgres. If you don't have any experience with it, the result probably is going to be worse than it would be with a MySQL. Any database, no matter which one you choose, MySQL or Postgres, will require some knowledge, will require some tuning, adjusting configuration parameters, making sure that it works, working with the backups, especially if you need to do some database replication and so on. So it's not a piece of software that you just install and leave it, as like Apache, as example, for the web server. So I would recommend to choose the one that you know better. But keep in mind that for the databases, as example, we have a mechanism that is being used to clean the database from old historical data, which is called a housekeeper. Housekeeper is not good. Instead, we should use a partitioning. And partitioning is supported for both database agents, but for MySQL or MariaDB, you need to find, there's plenty of them, but you still need to find either external script or a tutorial on how to set up the internal procedures for the partitioning. For the Postgres, all of that part is mostly native because you can use a timescale DB. And if you have a timescale DB, then you have a partitioning like out of the box without any third-party scripts or whatever, right? Web server, you have two options, Apache and Nginx. Apache is probably easiest to install. Nginx is the most powerful. If you are spinning up the system for a production, I would definitely recommend with Nginx. If you are just willing to set up something for your own personal testing without any load on the front end, probably Apache is going to be like the easiest. But again, both of those web servers function perfectly fine. You can get till the result, and like whenever your system is just growing very large, and you have like tens, maybe even hundreds of users working in a front end, and there's like a lot of graphs and data coming in and so on. Those are the conditions where like Nginx is going to perform better than Apache. Zabbix Cloud. So yeah, I kind of already like explained about this. We have 5 regions available that you can choose right now for your cloud node deployment, 7 tiers, automatic updates. But I would suggest like to make research this, because like as far as I know, there is still no clear strategy on the upgrade policy on the Zabbix Cloud. So if you're running from the packages, I don't know, like 8.0 is going to come out. Then after 6 months, we're going to see 8.2, which is going to be the standard version, not the LTS, but it will have a new functionality and so on. So if you're on the packages or containers or third-party cloud vendors or sources or appliance, you can you can upgrade to Zabbix 8.2. And yeah, how it's going to be on the cloud, I think it's not yet publicly available information. Will there be an option to get like on a stable versions, or is going to be only LTS version? Because right now, I think the latest version in the Zabbix Cloud is 7.0. So you cannot get a 7.2 and you cannot get a 7.4. On a side note, I see that some people are raising their hands. If you want to ask some questions, just ask them in questions and answers section, and I will make sure to try to answer all of them after the webinar. Like I'm not going to be covering questions during that. Um, Third-party clouds. So yeah, I actually made this screenshot today. So there's some issue with this Zabbix version, but basically how it looks like. So third-party clouds, like if we decide, okay, so now it's fixed. See, there's like different screenshot. Good. If we decided, okay, we have AWS or Azure or DigitalOcean or OpenShift, whatever, probably depends like on what our company is already using and in which cloud provider we do have some budget allocated, so that might be easier to spin it up. How we do that, we basically just proceed to install, which is going to get you to AWS marketplace where we have Zabbix server sold by Zabbix. As I said, like there is a pricing and there's the cost, which is, yeah, I think I don't remember. You could click somewhere and see like what's the actual cost for the EC2 itself and for the Zabbix usage. But here you kind of just decide whatever size you need, and with just a couple of the clicks, you will have EC2 in your AWS with the Zabbix server up and running. But again, you can just install it yourself on the same EC2 as example. If you want to have it in AWS, go create manually EC2, install a Linux of your flavor, whatever it would be, like AlmaLinux or Amazon Linux, doesn't matter, and then just follow these commands and install Zabbix through the packages as example, right? And same story about the Azure, DigitalOcean, GCP. So right now the latest is 7.0 and also the OpenShift.